does that go to that Hangout and YouTube?
Mm-hmm. That is YouTube Hangout, Google Hangout is.
Okay.
All right. Let me get it. So I don't think that's working. Anyway, all right. It's not big enough. Well, we're online now, but
Yeah, it's gonna say, can you still shift the camera just a little bit? We can have it back up.
which way? Okay. All right. So tonight I'm going to be talking about creating a reporting system by integrating System Center using PowerShell as an integration tool. My name is Mick Fletcher, and I know you all know me here because we've had quite a few meetings together, but we're also online, so some of the people online probably don't know me very well. I'm an SCCM admin with a background in automation. Automation is really one of my specialties that I use PowerShell for. I work in the legal industry with previous experience in music, financial services, and architecture and engineering. And I author Mick's IT blogs, which at the very end of this, if you want to see some of the scripts that I've written utilizing this reporting tool that I'm talking about in SCCM, you can go out to my blogs and you'll see some of the latest ones that will give examples of how it's done. And of course, I co-founded the Nashville PowerShell group. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about SCCM as a reporting tool. As we all know, SCCM is primarily used for deploying software. Well, I decided that SCCM probably could also be used, instead of just deploying software, how about making SCCM report to us when certain conditions are met on computer systems. Now, granted, SCCM does have reporting tools in it, but not everybody has access to SCCM. And not everybody wants access to it either. So the task here, SCCM uses the custom detection method to scan a system for a specified condition. That's the first thing we want to look at here when trying to generate our reporting tool. If the condition is false, then SCCM just generates no reports. So what it's doing is it's going to go out, it's going to scan the system for parameters we write in PowerShell, and if it doesn't match those parameters, then it's going to say no reports needed. If the condition is true, SCCM generates a report and emails it to the appropriate IT staff. Now the process to get this done. We're going to write the custom detection method and installation scripts using PowerShell. If you all have touched the custom detection methods, you'll probably know that you can use either JScript, PowerShell, or VBScript. We're going to create a standard application deployment in SCCM. We're going to treat this just like as if we're deploying a regular application out to machines, but it's not going to be an application. It's going to be actually a reporting tool instead, and that's where the custom detection method's going to come in and make that difference, that be able to differentiate. Basically, the application itself is going to be the report sender, whereas the custom detection method is the one that determines if the report needs to be sent. We're going to set up the deployment type. And as I said earlier, that's going to be a normal application. PSExec. The reason I have PSExec in here, and I know a lot of people object to using PSExec because they say that PSExec is unsecure. Well, that was with version 1. You now have version 2 out, which was secured. and the flaw that was in version 1 has been fixed. The reason you might want to use PSExec is if your company won't allow WinRM to be enabled. You need WinRM. If they allow WinRM, then you don't need to use PSExec and you don't have to worry about this because you're going to input that into the PowerShell script. There's other security issues though with that. If you are allowed to use WinRM in your environment and you're able to execute the script on remote systems, you run the problem is, what if somebody can see the script, and if you don't have it secured properly and they see the credentials that that script is using? And that's one issue right there you could run into. But the last 2 companies I worked with, they didn't allow WinRM, including my current company, so I opted to use PSExec.
Is there a reason why they don't like?
There are a lot of places.
I would think they would allow WinRM before PSExec.
Well, there are a lot of companies that still feel that PSExec is insecure. WinRM is insecure having remote access out there. And that was the reason, especially the last company I worked at, they did not want WinRM enabled at all, and it was security concerns. The CIO at my company now, he went to a conference here several weeks ago, and they were stressing at the conference that WinRM don't enable it if you don't have to. So some companies, still have that feeling that, and it's still preached in certain places, don't enable WinRM. So this is the workaround. So the detection method exit codes. First thing we need to talk about is how a detection method executes. Do any of you all have any of you all ever used custom detection methods? And that's what I thought. It's a very obscure part of SCCM that there's been very little documentation out here on, and it took me absolutely months. I mean, I was probably off and on for 3 months until I finally figured out how it works. And it's not the easiest thing to learn, but once you learn it, it's fairly simple. There's actually more documentation out there recently on using. So basically, first thing you think about when is using this detection method is your return code and the data output on the screen. The 2 items determine what SCCM will do after it runs that application detection method. So the installation scripts where the email is generated, like I said earlier, it also records the action was taken and records it in a log file located in the application directory. So that way, that way you can. What I'm trying to say here is the most important part of this is getting to know this area. And so we're going to spend some time. I know this isn't PowerShell, but in order to use your PowerShell script correctly, you got to know how the custom detection method runs. So there's a list here of the codes. So the first thing is your script exit code is going to be a 0. Now your data read from your standard output and your data read from your standard error. Now these first 2 are actual successes, and they show that SCCM, the application was installed. And that's what you want SCCM to say or read is it's either installed or it's not installed. So if your script exits out with an exit code of 0 and you have your script doesn't output any text to the system, then it's going to read that yes, it's installed. But now in a reporting environment like what I'm talking about here is, think of installed as it's okay. The task that I'm looking at this system to do, okay, it passed it. It doesn't require any reporting. That's how you kind of think of installed in this scenario. The second thing, not installed. Again, it's got to return out an exit code of 0, which says that the script was a success. There's no data read, and it's going to say that it was not installed. Your unknowns here. If your script returns anything other than an error code 0, it doesn't know what happened. SCCM doesn't. It's unknown to server. So basically, if it returns a non-zero, any letters, bam, it's instantly an unknown condition. And it's basically the script was a failure. So if we go back here, your main ones you want are exit with an exit code 0, which is always, you're always going to have your script exit with exit code 0, and you're going to leave nothing, and that's going to say it's not installed. Or the one that I always choose for as a reference that it was installed is an exit with an exit code 0, and I have it do a write host, for instance, success. Any questions on how the custom detection method works? So that's all there is to literally writing your PowerShell script and putting it into the custom detection method. So I highlighted the two. Those are the two that I use in all my reporting scripts right there. Again, just reiterating them in red. Everything else I ignored, and that's exactly how it works. And I just, so basically, if it's a success, it passed my test, I have it exit with exit code 0, and I write host success. If it's not, I just have it exit, and I'm literally using the exit command, exit 0, and that means it failed.
So is a custom detection method part, is that a step on a package deployment?
Yes.
So let's say you're deploying 7-zip.
Mm-hmm.
You would add a custom detection method to that 7-zip package install. You would have a PowerShell script that runs as part of that detection method to determine if 7-zip was installed successfully.
You can, yes.
Is that what you're using it for, or?
It's, well, I'm going to show you, like, for instance, the example I'm going to show today is the local administrators. For instance, my firm doesn't want anybody, well, they want the vast majority of people not to have local administrator privileges. So I've made a application reporting tool here that will basically, when it does an application detection, it will scan the custom detection method the local administrators. And if it sees anybody in that local administrator that it's not in the exemption list, then it will say, okay, it's not installed. And then SCCM runs the actual installation script, and that's where it sends the email back to us and saying, hey, so, and it sends the computer name, so-and-so has local administrator privileges. And then we know what to do. And it logs it actually locally on the machine, which I'm going to show you in a second. That's how it actually works right there.
Okay. He's changing application installation to mean report on something that I want to get a report on.
Yes, exactly. Yep. And I'm going to get into the frequency and those topics here in a little while on that, on how often it checks it, how to set that. So the uses of this, you may be wondering, what am I ever going to use? Why do I need this? Well, local administrator reporting, like what I was just talking about. My firm doesn't want anybody except for a select few to have it. Sometimes you never know. The help desk gets a call from somebody, hey, I need so-and-so installed. Okay, I'm just going to give you local administrator privileges. They forget, and then they have it, and then something happens. Situation like that comes up. Well, with this, we're going to get an alert instantly that they have it. And the reason, and I've had people say, well, using this example, why would you want to do that? Why not just put in either a group policy or, well, sometimes you want to make exceptions, you know, and sometimes you just want to be told. You don't want it to always, you know, putting the hammer down on every time. You'd rather have it a report. I agree with you there. Another thing on Windows. Yes, it is. Makes us look important sometimes. Windows activation reporting. That's another thing I'm using this for now. We get some of the, every now and then, we don't know why. It's far and few between, but sometimes Windows isn't activated on a machine. And that's part of our build. Well, this basically goes out there and runs on a set schedule. And if somebody's not activated, we've had, I think, 2 emails come out of it where the machine failed to activate. And it automatically sent us an email. We were able to get on the machine and get that resolved before anything, the user got the pop-up. Hard disk drive fail reporting. I'm working on that actually right now. Basically, that is scans the event viewer logs, keeps track of those. The moment it starts seeing a hard disk drive failing, it will automatically return a failure back to SCCM that it's not installed. It'll send an email out to us saying, hey, so-and-so system, the hard drive's popping up errors in the event viewer log, you better replace it soon. Endpoint virus detection, that's another one I've actually gotten written and it's published out on my blogs. Basically, if endpoint, we use Microsoft Endpoint on our systems. If it detects it reads the event viewer logs, if it sees the system's infected, it automatically initiates a full system scan on it. And then sends us an email that so-and-so system was infected. Because as you know in SCCM, if you're an SCCM admin, it has the reporting tool there, but it doesn't automatically tell you. And the advantage, like with this tool, is we have one person that does the antivirus. And of course, he has a backup, but when he's out of the office, or what happens if it happens in the middle of the night? We have attorneys that work all hours of the day. This automatically kicks that off. Another thing, licensing reporting. This is another one I've got on my list to work on. Basically, what it'll do is if you have a certain set number of, let's say, Adobe Acrobat license, if it goes over that number that you put in there, bam, it'll start sending emails when people, if it gets installed on machines and you don't have enough license to cover those. Another one, WMI reporting. If you're WMI, got that partially written now. If WMI starts failing, it scans the event viewer logs and will automatically send out an email. GPO compliance reporting. Everybody always says the GPOs are rock solid. Well, I'm sorry. I see occurrences every now and then, and I'm sure everybody in this room has. The GPOs fail on systems. They don't always do it. Well, that's what another one I've got in mind here, to set up a GPO reporting tool that it runs the GP report on a local machine, and then reads the report out, and if any are failing, then it sends us an email. So we know on the spot that it's happening. Low disk space reporting, that's another one. Basically, I think you all know now how I'm talking about it working. That's another idea. So, well, I'm going to get back. I'm going to actually log directly into the server, VPN into my office here.
Yeah, live production demos, yes.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So, but I guess some of those, like the endpoint protection, I mean, doesn't that already have like an alerting piece in it?
It does, but the problem with that is like I was saying, what happens if it happens in the middle of the night? Or like in our case, we have one guy that does endpoint, and what happens if he's out of the office on vacation? I mean, he has a backup, no doubt, but his backup might be.
Can't you send emails?
You can, but see, that's where I'm getting like those, like if this happens in the middle of the night, we're likely in bed, you know, if a system gets infected. So this automatically kicks off a full system scan just to make sure that, you know, but it also does
So
reporting.
you can as a result, like if this fails, you can then kick off some healing type scripts, like the WMI
Yes.
reporting, like if because you know, WMI never gets corrupted in an SCCM environment.
Oh, of course not.
You would then kick off a rebuild or recompile the WMI repository.
Exactly. And I haven't gotten that one built yet because I've got a whole bunch of projects on my list. But that's just some examples that we've thought of. So this is it's not a complete, I should say here, I know I put it as a reporting tool. It doesn't have to be used completely as a reporting tool. I mean, I'm using the vast majority of it as, but like the antivirus healing, you know, kicking off a full system scan, That's one thing. And then like the low disk space, you get users that, yeah, we allow iTunes. Not firm. And you get users that have 30
Allow
gigs.
iTunes, but not WinRM.
But
To hell with management, I want my music.
yeah.
I mean,
It's only funny when you say it that way.
it's priorities. It's the manager's law. Well, that's, I wasn't going to say that, but I don't know that I had to.
All right, so we're finally in here. So I'm gonna let you see one of them that I've written here. All right, here's the local administrator report. And as you can see, it's in SCCM as a normal application installation. All right, we're going to go to the deployment types, and then under the actual deployment type, we of course set up the typical, your content location, just like a normal app. Let's see. All right, this is what you were asking about. This is your detection method right here. That's normally what you see on a system. And normally you'll have this. You configure a rule like you're looking for a file, an MSI, or such. But instead of that, you come down here to the custom script detection method. And that's where we're going to go in here. All right. All right, so, and yes, as you can see, I use SCCM. PowerShell Studio. I have to say it is the absolute best editor I've ever used in my life. I've just gotten, just to get off track here a little bit, I just got started. I mean, I've been using it now for about 8 months, but I've really dug in here recently, and I have to say, I'm absolutely blown away by it. It's worth every penny that you can spend on it. And I bought my own copy of it, private copy, so if I go, not that I want to leave where I work because I absolutely love it, but if I ever did, I want my own copy to take with me. All right, so what we're going to do here is, so the first thing we do in here, this is the actual custom detection method. And yes, I typically do declare my variables and dispose of them. I've run into situations before that I couldn't figure out, and I found out how important that can really be, especially when you're using the same variable for 2 different data types when data types change. So what we're doing here is, so on the local administrators, so as you can see here, like there's member exclusion, we got certain systems in there that we exclude out of the list. If it sees those systems there, it's not going to report it as, it's not going to send a report to us. It's going to flag it as okay. So basically what we do here, what I was talking about earlier, coming at the bottom here, this is the test right here. So we've already gone through, we've looked at the script's already grabbed who's local administrator on the machine. Did they belong to one of the exclusions there? Yes or no? And so then it comes down here, and what it's looking at is, so local admins count, if that equals 0, then we're good. And that's where it exits, or it goes down here, see where it's the first one there, that's a failure. The start sleep, I did that just so I knew what was going on. But it exits out just with an exit code of 0. And when it does that, that tells SCCM this application is not installed. Run the install on it. But if there were no local administrators, it passed the test, then it's going to write out, like I put in there, no local administrators, and then it exits out with an exit code 0. That's the passing that tells it, hey, it's installed. All you have to do, like you see here, is write something to the screen. And it tells SCCM it's installed and exit with an exit code of 0. It's as simple as that. And that's what took me so long to get through learning this, that's all this accepts. It doesn't accept anything else out of your PowerShell scripts. That's all the SCCM server is looking for. Is it installed or is it not? And those are the parameters right there. So that's your application detection method. Now, when it does say, okay, it's not installed, then it has to come back and execute the program. That's where you use your PS exec. And you come in there and basically you're gonna look, okay, I'll admit, I can't show you because I got our password in there, but I am gonna show you an example here.
Show it anyway.
Yeah.
It's not being recorded.
Well, of course not. So basically what you would come in here is type in psexec.exe, and basically to get access to psexec, you just put it in, you come in here in your content. psexec would be in the same directory as your installation program. That just, all you gotta do is copy and paste that in there. If you don't have access to WinRM in your environment. So you type in psexec and then you go // and you can use the computer name variable, and that basically tells it run on this computer. And then what it does is then you can do a -u and you do your domain / and then your username and then a -p, your password. And now this is another thing about using psexec. So I always do -h. -h tells it to run as administrator. But because you're running a PowerShell script, you have to do a cmd.exe/c, and then if you just type PowerShell.exe, it will lock up. It will never end. So you have to do an echo space dot, and then another space, then your pipe, and then you can do your PowerShell.exe command. And then, you know, your dash file and whatever the file name is, and then your close quotes. That's the, let me just do that so that you don't, I always do an execution policy bypass when I'm doing mine, just to make sure, and then I'm gonna say test.ps1. That's literally what you would enter in for your run command line in an application execution. And that tells it, here you may be wondering, why do I need to do this? Why do I need to use psexec? Well, here's why. SCCM uses the system account. In order to get access to Exchange, you need a domain account. You can't get a domain account in SCCM. psexec, using that, gives you access to a domain account. That's the whole reason for using psexec in this, because you need access to a domain account in order to be able to send the email. Because you're gonna, basically in your script, which I'm getting ready to show you here, in your script, it's going to be, you're gonna use the send dash email, I believe it is, commandment. I've got it in here.
Can't you it just seems like you should be able to just run a PowerShell script as the SCCM, but you're running as system.
Right, your installation account's running a system, so it doesn't have domain access. That's what using the psexec in your execution there gives you, the domain access, so that it has access to Exchange to be able to send
But
an
can
email.
you not just, instead of psexec, could you not just fire up? You're using psexec to start PowerShell.
Right.
But can you not just start PowerShell directly
You can.
and then pass in?
You're talking about passing the credentials. The only problem I have with that is, and here's the problem that
Because if you're using, doesn't the send email or whatever it is offer a credential?
let's see. All right, so this is the actual application it's using. I believe this is the one. Maybe it's not. No, I opened the wrong one. send dash email message. Sorry, that's the one that we're using. So basically, when we're using that, that's where it requires the domain account. Now, I could use a script, but here's my problem with using the script. I mean, with using passing the credentials within PowerShell is, what if somebody has access to that location where the PowerShell script actually exists, and they go in there and they see the credentials in the script itself? You can't. I've checked all the event logs in SCCM and all the log files. Those credentials don't, or what you have in the command line there does not appear in anything. So nobody can go through the logs and look up what did he put in as the credentials in there. Those don't appear anywhere in there. That was one of the things. Now, I haven't done a lot more research on that, but there may be a way, you know, that's possible. But that's an if. I'm not for sure on that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's basically how I send it right there, is using the send email message. And that way, because until I actually did that, I never had network access to be able to work, and it didn't work until I gave it those domain credentials. But yeah, it could be done in the script, but it's just, my concern is that somebody gets into where the scripts are located, looks at them, and they see the credentials in there. You know, whereas I know, not that we can't lock down those shares too, you can, but you know, and I lock down these in SCCM so nobody can, except for the certain ones, can go in there and look at the package itself. But that's one of the concerns that I've had on doing it that way. But you're probably right, it probably can be. Don't see why not.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like you should be able to natively run.
Well, you could use the actual invoke command. You could do that with WinRM if it's enabled. You could actually use that. You know, that wouldn't be a problem either. I mean, there's a lot of different ways it could be done, no doubt. But that's basically how it works. So basically, once it failed, once somebody was a local administrator on the machine, it executed this script right here. It went down through and it saw, yes, they were. This script generates, basically, your next question may be, so how does it keep on, or how does it not keep on sending that email over and over and over? Basically, I have it write a text file down there on the local machine. We have a log file directory on our computers. We store all the logs there. I basically have to write a log file, and the next time this runs, it sees that log file. Oh, I've already sent it. Don't send another one. So if the log file exists, so then if we go in there and say, oh, that person should have local administrator privileges, then we just go into the detection method. We add them in there, hard code that person in there since we have so few, and then the next time this runs, it sees it. Oh, they're hard coded in here. I'm going to delete that file off the system. And that's basically how it works, how you keep it from constantly repeating over and over and over, sending those emails out.
How much do you charge to get on that list?
That's confidential.
So when you see Mick driving around in your Porsche.
Yes, that's confidential information. Only the IRS knows that one.
Wow.
So that's basically the gist of using this, and how I got this, and I mean there's a whole bunch of tools there. In fact, we've got new ideas already of more reporting tools that we want to write, and I can't even remember. I've got my list is like this on my wall board already, besides the ones that I showed earlier on here.
How often are you executing these?
That's a good question. I'm glad you mentioned that because I almost forgot about that. So your next thing about this is, okay, how often is it going to execute? Well, that's determined here in the administration under your client settings, and let's see, I've got. There we go, reporting. I named it reporting. Open this. It's under your software updates and your scan schedule. You set that scan schedule. I've got it set for every 1 day on the very first time it executes, and then it rescans every 12 hours after that on those applications. So, I mean, you can set it at the default on this is 7 days, is how SCCM comes defaulted on it. But on this, I reset it, like I said, to every 1 day. And I think that's probably sufficient. And then once it's scanned the first time out there, then it will repeat every 12 hours after the first time there. So like on our antivirus there, it'll rescan, rerun the application detection at about every 12 hours on the system. If it sees it, if it runs it at 3 p.m. and it runs at 3 a.m. and the attorney's, got infected at midnight, it'll automatically rescan his system, initiate a full system scan with the antivirus endpoint. So those were some of the ideas that I've come up with on it, and I'm sure there's a lot more. But my next one that I've got, whenever I get my others, is definitely the hard disk drive failure, where it scans. I tell you one thing that a lot of people underestimate, it seems like, in SCCM and PowerShell, is the dead viewer logs. They are so powerful, and there's so much information out there that you can just grab. Like for instance, like I was talking about on the antivirus, all your dead viewer logs are there on what's going on with endpoint, and you can use that. You can use that with this reporting tool that I'm talking about here, and the scan whether a system's infected, if it just got infected, has it had a full system scan? That's one of the rules we have in our firm is we want to have a full system scan every time. And this automatically takes care of it. So that's kind of the gist behind all this. But yes, that's an important part right there. Otherwise, it's only going to scan every 7 days. So you definitely need to redo the software updates frequency on there. And that's pretty much the gist behind doing this and how I've achieved it. And pretty much, you can go out on my blogs here. So you can go, come out on my blogs there and look, and you can find some of the examples that I've posted out there. And if you're interested, I've got the code out there. I uploaded it, what I used. This very one that I talked about today, I've got the code out there on my blogs. You can download, and I've also posted the code for the endpoint protection on the virus scans. And I'm sure there's a whole lot more stuff that can be done with this. And of course, one thing that this also counters is, and I'm not saying this to make enemies, but we actually paid for Orchestrator last year. And since I've come up with this, actually this summer, we're doing away with Orchestrator. This has been able to do everything Orchestrator did for us. So we're actually canceling the licensing for it. That was the main gist behind doing this, because I thought when I first started thinking this out, I'm like, why can't SCCM do this same stuff that Orchestrator does? Reporting, triggering events and stuff. And then it just dawned on me, why not use the custom detection method as the detection tool, the trigger for running these, just like what we did with Orchestrator. And I'm doing the same thing right now. Another project I'm working on are the Windows updates. As you all know, when you deploy server updates, if you've got a whole bunch, sometimes there's a reboot in the middle of them before the rest get installed. Well, that's what I'm using this for. This will be able to monitor the updates as they're being deployed and trigger the reboots, and then also be able to write to a centralized report file if a server's got all the updates applied. Because I'm going to tell you, when you have 100+ servers and you're having to manage them, you don't want to log into every server, because it happened to us in our Austin office one time. We deployed it, SCCM said everything was good, and then when we logged into the server, it said waiting for reboot. And that's another reason I got started on this reporting method, and both reporting and software installation method that I've talked about today. So, any questions? And I'm gonna try, I will say this, I am going to try to kind of standardize these a little more than what I have, especially the local, I've only published two on the local administrator and the endpoint protection. I'm gonna standardize them more so the code's more reusable in other environments, because I know it works great in my environment, but it needs a little more, just, make it a little smoother for everybody else to be able to download those and be able to use them. So I'm going to definitely work on that. So does anybody have any questions? Sure.
Where does, I guess, I don't know too many people that are deploying DSC to clients and stuff. But I feel like some of this is like configuration management type stuff where I think, like a Puppet or a Chef, if you already have that deployed, or DSC.
Sure.
Some of those things I think could be done there, but then again, I don't.
And you're right.
DSC on the client side.
Well, and you're right, and that's one thing I've got on my list. My list keeps on growing more and more, but
yeah,
DSC definitely. I want to definitely get that down, and in fact, I think our next meeting is probably going to be on Puppet. I think, I don't know. It's going to be either Puppet or it's going to be what's the new? I had a brain dump here. What's the new Pester?
Pester. Ooh, that would be nice.
Yes.
Tester.
Yep. So any request on you all? What I know. In fact, I think actually Pester is the next one. I think. Okay.
Are you doing any Pester, writing any Pester?
I've done some.
I
not a lot.
keep meaning to, but it's just it's that ever-growing list of stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Does that? I assume that sounds good with the rest of you all, Pester. I mean, I definitely could stand some learning on it myself also.
Yeah.
So, okay. We'll set up for, I'll see if we're good on that. All right. If y'all don't have any other questions, I think that kind of wraps us up on that. So basically, I hope that helped and give you a good idea, give you some insight into if you want to kind of do this and turn your SCCM into more of a reporting tool and automation tool than just a deployment engine there. All right.
SCCM?